Welcome to the After School. Hi, I'm Nathan DeJesus and I go to Fenway.
Hi, I'm Meena Mohamed and I go to Snowden International. Today is November 27th, 2019, and we had a half day at school. Wasn't very fun, didn't like it, wouldn't recommend it, I want it to be canceled forever.
I think that, these half days, they're not necessary. I think that you go to the school for these 30-minute short blocks and you don't actually retain any of the information that you're being given. So then when you come back off of these breaks, there's nothing that you retained over the break. So those lessons that those teachers planned were all for nothing.
Right. Like, I go see my teachers. I know they don't want to be there. I don't want to be there. So we just, look at each other and they try to make a lesson. Yeah. But, the lucky kids aren't there. We're just sitting there. Mm-hmm. Things aren't happening. Like, I don't want to spend time going to school to leave and, just
I think
not
at the end
it.
of the day, the teachers, they're way too, I wouldn't say committed to their jobs, but, they make sure that they have a lesson for this day when I don't think it's entirely necessary to have one.
Yeah, it's just that I don't really care about being there if I'm not going to be doing anything. If I have a test or if I have something important, I get that. But if there's nothing going on, I have no purpose to be there and I'm wasting my time and wasting your time, and it's just like, dude, no.
Yeah, other schools had pep rallies, and so it was so much more of a important reason to be there, but I don't think that half days are necessarily needed.
What is up, Boston? It's time for the Teens in Print Podcast News of the Week segment. I'm Jacob.
I'm Malia. With President Trump's ongoing impeachment hearings due to his involvement in pressuring Ukraine to investigate the Biden family, a Trump-free White House is now becoming a possibility. With a wink from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, it is becoming clear that the investigation is moving forward. Democrats in the House declared President Trump had compromised national security in his affairs with Ukraine.
Another 2020 Dem debate, another disappointment on stage. TLDR, Biden continued to do whatever exactly it is he does, making no sense, but continuing to lead in the polls. Jumping from his friendship with the only African-American woman ever elected to Congress, not true, to hilariously misworded rhetoric about punching at violence towards women.
Warren and Sanders remain radical in the approaching consistent numbers, but can't seem to top each other in the polls. Mayor Pete continues to ride the coattails of his peers, but saw a notable jump in following a clapback on his lack of experience, stating there's 100 years of experience on this stage and look where we are as a country.
However, despite the primaries rapidly approaching, no Dem on the stage has yet to reach the clout of one Baby Yoda. You heard that right. Despite being a literal puppet, the little guy has consistently dominated Twitter feeds, meme pages, possibly the country? Here at Teens in Print, we completely endorse Baby Yoda 2020, and that, my beautiful listeners, is Teens in Print News of the Week. I have been Jacob.
And I've been Malia.
And that is all we have to say right now. And now it's roundtable time.
So for today's discussion, we are going to be discussing how and why we joined Teens in Print and why it's important to us. Mine is really boring, so I apologize in advance. I shouldn't say that. But for me, Teens in Print was being advertised in my school a lot, and the main part of the meeting that was being advertised was that there would be snacks, and I was like, that's amazing. I love snacks. It's going to be great. Me and a bunch of other people from my school came, and we all agreed it was for the snacks, and then we sat there, and then Carla came in, and Alyssa, rest in peace, and then she...
Rip.
And
She's not dead, though.
Yeah, she just left us for the Boston magazine. Anyways, they did a cute little slideshow presentation, and even though they didn't even bring any snacks, by the way, there was no snacks.
For the snacks is the most in-character thing I've ever heard you say.
Yeah, I love snacks. I was very disappointed, but I stayed, and they...
For the snacks.
There wasn't any snacks, so I was about to bounce, but then they were doing the slideshow, and there was a part, one thing, I know there was a bunch of other appealing things, but one thing that really stood out to me was a guaranteed summer job when we did when we did the school year program, and I was tired of being a freeloader, and I was like, I want a job, I want to make my family proud and make some money, and we're doing something that's actually interesting. It wasn't like heavy labor. We were doing writing, which I already loved already. So then by the end of it, I was definitely for sure like, yes, I'm coming to this. But when I didn't get there for a really long time because I was nervous. It started a while ago. I had cross country, and then I just stalled. I didn't come at all, and then randomly I came in, and then I walked in with my mom. My mom came with me. That's kind of embarrassing. Yes, and it was you, Masha, Mariela over there, and then my mom was like, "Hey guys, my daughter's trying to join," and then Jacob was like, "Yeah, we're basically the kids' bop of journalism," and I was just standing there awkwardly, and then that's how I came, and nobody else from my school came. They were all in it for the snacks, and then when there was no snacks, it was just a deal breaker. But I stayed.
I think what we can learn from that is that the real snack is friendship and journalism.
Journalism.
And friendship. But mostly
that's
journalism.
mad cute.
Well, how I joined TIP is probably one of the weirder stories of my life. I was working at a zoo, cleaning up after chickens, literally a crap job. And I hated it. So the next summer, I was just on the summer jobs website, just kind of filling things out at random, but I was dead set to not work at the zoo again. And one of the options was, we're looking to hire staff writers for teens in print. And I was like, wow, I have a lot of opinions. I would like to be paid to have them. And then I put in for the job and immediately forgot about it. 2 weeks later, I get an email from Carla, our editor boss lady, and it says, hey, you want to come in for an interview? And I'm like, well, all right. So I put on this flannel that I was pretty sure would pass as a dress shirt. I end up getting there. Keep in mind, it's May, so it's 100 degrees outside. And I'm just...
flannel?
Yeah, in the flannel. Almost a dress shirt. Just super sweaty and gross. And I am shaking in the interview, all nervous because I really didn't prepare. I also didn't bring a resume or anything. I just showed up hey, please hire me. And they did. And 3 years later, I'm on a podcast for it. So I must have done something right at some point. And it's just been, all in all, a pretty great experience.
So I've actually been here for a while, since freshman year. It's my third, school year.
All grown up.
Wow. I don't know. I remember being a freshman. I was pretty aimless. I didn't know what I was doing. I picked up a thing with Science Club for girls, and I did it for from October to December, and then that ended, and then I just had my routine of going to school, going home, and then I was just if I keep on doing this, high school will end up being the same as middle school, and I just went home and spent 4 hours watching stuff, and I never did my homework. So I was just clicking around. I think that I was on some government websites, something.gov,
The dreaded
the
CYF
BPL.org. I don't know what I was on. It was the classic tip colors. That's all I remember. I don't know what it was saying.
You are an amazing color scheme.
And then it just said information, email, and I was just it's once a week. I never I just had a small journal within middle school, and I wrote my middle school stuff. The stuff that you never want to look at now, because everything I was in a bubble then, and then I joined. Well, I applied, and I was just okay, forget about it. I don't know what's gonna happen. Carla got back to me, and then when I showed up at the building, the first person I saw was Jacob, and I was just okay.
Very welcoming.
Yeah.
And then we were just standing in the elevator, and then he said things. I was dead silent, and then he
things
went
that were
in.
Probably very off-putting.
Yeah. And then I remember just standing outside the double doors, just standing. I don't know. I just was just standing. And then Carla is just "Are you Meena? Hi." And I feel like all of our stories have something to do with Carla, so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like she's our boss.
Yeah, I don't know. Wow. Yeah, and then I've been here. Like, highlights of me joining, it took me 2 cycles to get my first article published.
Didn't you win an award on your first article, though?
I did.
Yeah, you did. I remember being very salty about that.
I remember, too. Oh, my God, you're so mad.
Dude, oh my god, it was like the first time I'd been nominated too. It was like, oh, I'm gonna win. Oh, and then Meena just shows up. Hello. Award, please.
Wow, you're not wrong. So that happened. I've been here ever since. It's been a wild ride, and I've loved it so far.
My story literally is probably the most boring here. I think it was it May? It was around there, maybe a little earlier. Tippett came to my school and they gave us a little slideshow. We also got the same, snack little.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Did they
snack
actually bring
guarantee.
snacks?
See, so no, I didn't actually go to the meeting.
Oh,
I didn't
okay.
go to any meetings after that.
I wonder if they
it
never
took me
bring
like
snacks.
2 months after I learned about them. I was writing an essay for school. It was about anxiety and autism, and I had written it, and I was like, huh. Yeah, I remember Teens in Print. I was like, sure, why not? See what would happen. They accepted it. It was published, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then summer came around. I was looking for a summer job, and I had already been hired at a mural crew. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was gonna go, do some painting in downtown. And then I thought about Teens in Print again because I remember I had seen an advertisement that they were looking for them. And I was like, sure. So I emailed Carla. I was like, I got a job? And literally, like, a week later, she was like, yeah, we sure do. And literally, I was hired right then and there. I brought my paperwork into the BCYF office. And then
you sat there and waited for several hours.
Yeah, this is
Because
true.
that's what
Actually,
you do.
I brought in the wrong
BCYF.
birth certificate, so I got sent back, and I had to go.
Wait, how do you bring in the wrong birth certificate?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Yeah, SJI, it was amazing. I think that Tip welcoming me was really cool. I think that I got to write a lot of opinions in SJI, and I was the student speaker at our networking breakfast. That was really cool. Very scary. I met a lot of people there. Fast forward a month. It was our first staff writer meeting of the school year, and I got there, and that's when Carla came up to me and was like, you want to be editor? And I was like, I guess, sure. And then that's how we are here.
I feel like everybody has kind of touched on this a little bit, but we should probably go around in a circle again and talk about why it was meaningful for you.
Mm-hmm.
For me specifically, I feel like Teens in Print really helped me get out of my shell. It just inspired me to do things that I never would have done before. And I know that sounds vague, but just recently I had to do a profile for a teacher, and for that I got to visit my old kindergarten teacher, and she was always somebody that I wanted to keep in touch with because I have such fond memories of her, and using Teens in Print as an excuse to go see her was a really cool experience because we got to like catch up and talk about the past, and it was really fun, and it was not something I ever would have done if it wasn't for Teens in Print. And also just like watching new pieces of media and like just looking at things with a more critical eye, just seeing any piece of media and just being like, oh, I can write an article about that, or I can do one about this, and just like being able to write about the things I'm interested in. Like this is sad, but the first article I was actually proud of was made in May, and I've been here for like 3 years.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And it was about Star Kid, which was something I had been into, and I never would have written about it like so intensely if I wasn't a part of this. I would have just enjoyed it and moved on, and I did move on, but being able to write about it was very cathartic, just being able to express everything that I loved about it. And then I won an award for it, my first award ever, and I didn't even expect it because I didn't even think I was qualified when I wrote it because I didn't have interviews, so I was like, okay, whatever, like this will just be for fun. So when I won the Rising Voices Award, the Young Voices Award,
I think it's Rising Voices.
Rising Voices Award, that was very exciting for me. I was super pumped about that. In the beginning, I kind of just I was just pressured to write articles. I literally just took an old essay I wrote in like the 9th grade and then used it as my first ever article because I was so scared, and I was like, I have to write an article and I'm not used to doing this, so I just stole that. But as time went on, I started loving writing more and more, and I feel like my writing has improved. Like everything from sophomore year and below, I want it to get removed, but like from junior year and now, I'm very proud of everything I've written, and I wouldn't be as proud of my writing if it wasn't for TIP.
Yeah, I'd say in a lot of ways I'm kind of in the same boat there. Before I joined TIP, I really didn't leave the house. I didn't talk to people. I just had a lot of just pent up thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things, and then I end up getting this job where not only does what I say matter, but people are actually going to see it and read it. And they did. And I remember, like, highlight of my journalism career, first article I ever got published, it was, like, my, like, ravings about, like, rock and roll and, like, its effect, or its, like, role in, like, history. I got hate mail. Oh. And it was such, like, a weird thing, because it was like, wow, not only did someone read my article to start with, but it affected them so much that they felt the need to find Carla's email, which I think is in like the back of the paper, write out this like long, rambly email to her, and then hit send. I affected someone that much, and it was like a crazy thing, because like, I know I shouldn't be getting excited over someone like saying like, hey, I hate what you're doing, but it was like, wow, people are reading this, people are taking notice. And then, like, I've been just here ever since, because it's, like, such a cool thing that, like, people care. People are listening. People are reading. And I've been told that, like, I read a lot of movie reviews. I got people to not see a movie, which, again, kind of cool that my voice matters now and didn't before, I guess.
Just listening to your, like, both of you guys, I think that it just brought up a lot of memories that I have, and, like, a lot of things that, like, pushed me to do things that I would have never considered doing. Like, I think my first year, I struggled with writing my article. I mentioned before that it took me 2 cycles. I was just, like, at, like, I just kept on stalling, because I was just like, if I'm writing such about like a unique experience that I can I experience, but I need to write in a way that like everyone else can understand and relate. And I think that despite like it was my first article, and like reading back, and I'm like, I mean, I feel like everyone has this with writing, like you always want to change it and make it better, but I think
yes.
that
everything I've ever written.
It's just like looking back on it, like I'd occasionally pull it up and read it, and like it's such a fond memory because the support I had from like peers and people around me. I remember where we sat around and read my article, and it was on the board, and I was just like, I don't know, I was just like, holy crap, that's me. And I think that, like, after winning that award and after moving on to other articles, I put that article into the back of my mind, and then I remembered last December, something 31 Nights at the Prudential, was it?
Oh, yep,
yeah.
Yep, that was,
we went there, and I didn't know, but then somebody, I think it was Carla or Sarah, was just like, oh yeah, your article's in this, like,
the 5-minute story
machine. 5-minute story machine. I'm like, oh yeah, your article was selected for this. And I'm like, what? Nobody told me this. So, like, all throughout December, people have been, like, pressing a button, and, like, they had the chance of reading my article. Mm-hmm. And I think that was just such a deep moment for me. And two women approached me, and she was just like, oh my god, can we read your article? So we spent like 5 minutes aggressively pressing the button for mine to come out, and they were like, oh, I'm so excited to read this. And I'm like, I've never met these people, I don't know these people at all. And that was like very deep and eye-opening to me, and I think that I would have never experienced that without TIP. Like the ample amount of opportunities I've had to like show who I am and what I'm interested in. Like things that happen outside of TIP, I bring it inside TIP. Like me working on the farm, learning about like food deserts and like low-income communities, and like niche things like Victorian language of flowers. Like everything that that I think of, like the environment and things that I experience out there, like knowing that I have people at TIP who will support me to write it, and like having that mentorship and guidance. I don't know where else I would have found that, or people who would have helped me like realize what I like the most and what I like doing.
I do think that TIP has changed my life, to be honest, only because that first article that was published about the autism and anxiety, I think that was something that, much like Jacob showed me, that people actually do read this. This isn't something that, like, we're doing for fun just to have, you know, like, oh, I'm published. But, like, no, people are actually reading my published work. My favorite article was about internalized homophobia. And that article meant so much to me only because the first line said, I'm gay. And this was something that was huge to me because I was revealing myself to too many people.
20,000 people.
In my school, when I first saw that those papers touch down on the Teens in Print little like newspaper holder, I first saw them touch down, and I saw people. They were flooding in to get them, and I'm like, I was scared. It was one of those things where like all these people are gonna see me. I think that what happened after it was amazing. People all over were like, "Oh my God, I loved your article," and it was. I remember the first couple of days after people were giving me compliments and stuff, I cried. I did, because it's like, that's crazy.
Love that.
Like, my mom's best friend, she goes up to me and she's like, you know, you didn't have to tell me. I just knew in this article. Like, I'm like, oh my God, please stop. The waterworks. Like, it was really cool. There's so many teens, too many teens that are scared to speak. Me still being one of them, I'm still scared to speak and say certain things. I'm still scared to write certain things. And I have to learn to not let that go, but to put it on like the back burner, only because at the end of the day, I'm writing this for those teens because they may not have the same opportunities as I do. I think that the effect that I have on those teens may not be large, but them seeing that someone may like have similar problems as they do, them seeing that, it makes so much of a difference. And I can speak on that from so many different experiences. I don't know, I just think that Teens in Print is something that's certainly needed.
Can't argue with you there. I think Teens in Print, I know that Teens in Print has definitely affected us all in very similar ways. It's been a very big part of all of our lives. But even past all the things, like the emotional validation it's given all of us, it also comes with a lot of perks. Like a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah, your boy hasn't paid to go to a movie in like 2 years. And like, honestly, being a reporter is pretty tight.
Yeah, like for teenagers, this is probably like one of the best jobs you could get as a teenager, like by far.
Like the second I saw my name on a press badge, I was like, ooh, I kind of like that.
Wow. I agree, Malia. Like no one really tells you the things that you're gonna be able to do. I feel like once you join this program, it's what you make of it, because you get the title of, I work for a newspaper. You should definitely let me do X, Y, and Z. And I think that having that and being able to use that in return for like using your voice, which as we all said, matters a lot. I think like having that opportunity to go to like a women's conference, to go like to movies on a press pass, to have like these connections to people who can and who will give me the opportunity, I'm very immensely grateful, because like like, I've been here for a while and I don't know every opportunity there is. There's just so much to do, and it's like, it's really what you make of it.
Yeah, I totally agree on that there. For the most part, whenever I've, like, gone to Carla or gone to any of the other adults here being like, hey, can you help me, like, try to get passes to this thing? I want to write about it. Or if I was saying, hey, can you get me in contact with this person? I want to, like, meet them and talk to them. Almost always, it's a yes. It really is, like Meena said, what you make of it. You can do some crazy, crazy, crazy things here. Like, I had a whole interview where I just, like, sat down with, like, the temple, the Satanic Temple Boston chapter. Like, that's not something I thought I'd ever do. That's not even something I thought would be, like, possible to do, to organize that, but I did it, and it was pretty cool. It's really just, it's a great program. I'm so happy I'm here sometimes.
Yeah, and it attracts the best people. Like, Carla is...
Yeah, me, of course. Duh.
Carla is an amazing boss. Like you said, she is so, like, welcome to do anything you, like, ask her to. And, like, not literally, but, like, she's so open to giving you more opportunities to do things, and she's so sweet. And it's just, like, it attracts the best people, like, both the bosses and the kids.
Definitely.
Carla is my trusted adult.
Oh, yeah.
That's tip, man. That's the experience. Yeah, we're definitely a safe environment, we're a welcome environment, and we're an environment that you, listener, if you are a teen, I hope you're a teen, I hope we get a large enough teenage fan base. Be weird if only adults are listening to this. But yeah, you, teen, come, join us. It's rad. You will not regret it. Not one bit.
Yeah, visit our website. I think it's bostontip.com.
Yeah, I think bostontip.com. Read stuff I wrote.
Yeah,
That's
read the articles, find the email.
Jasmine's doing hand signals that I'm interpreting as we need to wrap this up. So yeah, bye. I love you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Subscribe to our podcast here. Join our newsletter at the link in the description and follow us on social at Teens in Print.
You can read our print newspaper at bostontip.com or at your local Boston Public Library.
If you're a Boston resident middle or high school student interested in joining Teens in Print, you can reach out to us at bit.ly/tip1920 or at the links in the description.
This has been Meena,
Jacob,
Malia.
And Nathan, see you next time after school.
theme music.
Yay!